Ready?
We have a blinky battery light up here, just so you know, it might go dead.
You turn it on. Oh, yeah.
Call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to the next agenda item and roll call.
President Sparks,
Oh.
my omission, I just wanted to clarify that before we formally roll into the main body of the agenda, there is a requirement that we conduct the public hearing in regards to the anticipated budget revision. So with your consent, I will move to the hearing, and then we can reset the meeting again.
Thank you.
You bet.
I totally thought about that earlier and then forgot.
No problem.
Thank
We're
you.
good.
So we're gonna have the
The public
budget,
hearing.
the public hearing
The
for the
budget
budget.
revision. Yes, sir. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
So, and I think, oh,
Thank
there
you
it
for
is. It's
correcting.
already on the overhead. President Sparks and members of the board and public, this evening, I'm going to present the revised budget or the budget revision. This is changes in the budget since the time that the board originally approved the original budget for this fiscal year. And I can tell you that our wonderful CFO, Mrs. Huey, is at home on medical leave, and I talked to her today. She's doing well and looking forward to getting back with us. But I'm glad to assume this role and to make a recommendation regarding the approval of the budget. Again, this is required by law that this revision be approved. It actually has to be approved by May 15th. So luckily we're in good compliance there. I really always appreciate how Lizette summarizes this because it makes it very, very concise. And there are really there are a couple of basic themes. As we recommended and the board approved this budget with the anticipation of student growth level of 2%. And as you can see, that seems to be true to form. We're actually a little bit on the positive side, which is where we want to be, but we're pretty much true to form, to what we anticipated. The other thing that you'll see is that we are carrying forward healthy, appropriate reserves. Now, so I'll talk a little bit about that. If you just look at the general trends, I'm not going to go over every single budget line, but I'll highlight a few. Obviously, the base revenue control limit's a function of our average daily membership, and it's a function of our student enrollment. So we budgeted 2%. We went a little bit higher than that, but not much. So we went up 406,000 there, and you see kind of slight ebbs and flow, but everything is pretty modest and not massive peaks and valleys and massive deviations. For example, the override, which is also a function of ADM, but prior year, went down a little bit. The tuition from Continental Elementary School District, this is the last year we're doing that, by the way. Next year, they will be able to be counted under our ADM as our students. So we won't have to bill Continental. They'll just be counted under our budget. And the Prop 123, which if you remember is the inflation lawsuit, which goes through 2026, it's also a function of ADM, and it ebbed and flowed. I think it flowed upward slightly. So if you look at the net effect of the revision, it's when you're looking at a base revenue control limit that's in the $37, $38 million, and the net difference is like $300,000, it really all kind of balances itself out. It suggests this theme that we budgeted true to form, that Lizette's anticipation and prediction is pretty much spot on, and that we're a little bit above, which is better than a little bit below. I did want to note that we are, and I had mentioned this, I think when I made the recommendation to the board about the compensation package for this year, that and I say this proudly, that we are bringing forth a healthy, robust carry forward. The district's budget is in sound shape. It's almost $5.5 million. And I, as a rule of thumb, tend to be fairly conservative, and I know that Lisette shares that same kind of mindset, because we all see the kind of world that we live in. It's rather unpredictable, rapidly changing, and so I like about 15%, and we've been around that point. We're still dealing with the aggregate expenditure limit. We might talk a little bit about that a little later on SBA priorities. We also know what happened with this thing called the pandemic, and how we dropped 10% of our ADM, our student enrollment. And if we wouldn't have had healthy reserves, we wouldn't have been able to keep everybody employed and keep every program intact. The other thing is that when you have a reasonably healthy carry forward, you're able to do things like what I recommended and what this board did at a couple meetings ago, which is dig into some of those savings accounts, if you want to call them that, and authorize them for raises that we then have to sustain, because we believe that I think the price tag for those raises was almost $2 million. And if we only had 2.5 or 3, I would have not been confident in advising you to approve that. But when we have several million more, it was a reasonable, calculated, thoughtful risk in support of our dedicated and hardworking professional staff members at a time where we're still coming out of the recession. We're moving up, but we're still kind of coming out. So that's that. If you look on the DAA side, kind of more of the same. You look at nominal budget line shifts. Again, we do have I think it's about $1 million, $1.2 million carry forward. And this is from last year. So what happens is you budget for curriculum and for programs and for fixing roofs and buying buses and cars and things like that, technology. And then at the end of the year, some things may have come in lower than we budgeted for. So we're able to capture those funds. I know that, sometimes we have issues with supply chains. For example, and I know Dr. Sparks, you're very well aware of this, we have a heater unit, a big heater unit that went out at the aquatic center, at the swimming pool. It happens. And Scott briefed me yesterday that there's still like someplace in Tennessee has this key part and we're still waiting on it. So we have those issues. So some of those projects might have been not executed just because we ran out of time and they didn't get done. So in any case, about $1 million carrying forward. Again, to stick to the heavy equipment theme, we need to be prepared for emergencies. If one of those chillers, and I think of the high school because one time Scott remembers this, it went out and it's a big, massive unit. It's like $500,000. And so we have to be ready for those type of emergencies. And so again, this is about in line with what we usually try and do in terms of carry forward on district additional assistance. And so in summary, I think to the point of the hearing, our budget is very, very sound. I give much credit to Lizette for her leadership vision, for her conservative principles, but also her mission focus in helping us how we manage the pandemic, how we utilize the federal monies that were available to us strategically, and how we go forward in really solid foundational shape, and hopefully in a position to accommodate the growth that we believe strongly is coming as we go forward. So with that is the substantive elements of the hearing. I'd be glad to answer any questions, any conversations if desired.
Thank you, Dr. Also, are there any questions or comments? I know this will be on the agenda during the regular meeting too for approval.
Yes, sir, for approval. Yes, sir.
But any questions or comments? I think if no one else has any comments, I think this budget review, I think is important because it shows a very kind of strategic effort to run the budget of the district so that it has a reasonable cushion. And I think anybody who's run a home budget likes to get to the end of the year with a little extra and not negative. And my entire time here over the last decade, almost, it's never been negative. It's always been positive. And that lets us do things like fix very expensive items that break sometimes. I was here when the chiller went out, and I think it was actually like $1.2 million. It was
Pretty expensive. Very expensive.
So I'm grateful for that kind of deliberate, because I know there are districts around the state that do not carry forward a healthy amount, and they live much closer to that margin. And you hear about them in the news occasionally where something happens either in the district or the state, something goes on, and they aren't able to compensate for that. So I'm grateful for that. And I think it demonstrates clearly to the public that we are making efforts to spend wisely, but also make sure that we have enough to cover emergencies. And sometimes that's hard because people want to spend what we can, but we don't lose it. I mean, it's not one of those.
Oh, no.
Our budget is not one of those things. If you don't spend it, you lose it. We
sir.
get it anyway, but so we can have a safety net, which I appreciate. So I think that's all I wanted to add. I don't know any other comments.
You may close the hearing at your
So go ahead and
discretion
close.
if there's not any other comments to be had.
Any other comments? So if everybody's all right, we'll close the hearing and we'll go back to the regular agenda. I'm not going to the Pledge of Allegiance again, but we do have to take a roll call again.
I would recommend that you recall the meeting because technically the hearing has to be a separate entity.
So we'll close that meeting. I'll recall it, but I'm not going to redo the pledge.
Very well.
Is that okay with everybody, or should we do the pledge twice? I like the pledge, but so we'll go ahead and close that meeting, call this meeting to order. But we've already done the Pledge of Allegiance to open the original meeting, and we'll move on to roll call. Ms. Palacios.
Governing Board President, Dr. John Sparks.
Here.
Governing Board Clerk, Sherry Lowe.
Here.
Governing Board Member, Denise Reese.
Here.
Governing Board Member, Raul Rodriguez.
Here.
Governing Board Member, Anthony Bruno.
Here.
District Administration Superintendent, Dr. Manuel Valenzuela.
Present.
Assistant Superintendent, Scott Downs.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent, Brett Bonner.
Here.
Director of Business Services, Christina Martin.
Here.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, approval of the agenda, Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. President Sparks, members of the board. At this point, I would recommend approval of the revised agenda with one noted amendment. If you look at the consent agenda, I think it's letter C. There's a slight revision. Yes, it is letter C. Those addenda, if you read the agenda, it says that they are for school year 23-24. That is not accurate. It is actually addenda to be paid out for services rendered during school year 22-23. So with that noted exception, I would recommend approval of the agenda as it was revised.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation to approve the agenda as corrected, having the typo corrected. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to approval of the minutes, Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. President Sparks, members of the board, you have in your packet draft copies of the minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting of the board back on April 26, 2023. And after your review and consideration, I do recommend approval at this time.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. And any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Thank you very much. We will go ahead and move on to ratification of the vouchers.
Good evening. On behalf of Ms. Huey, I recommend approval and ratification of payroll voucher 22 and new payroll vouchers 24.1, 25, and 25.1 for a total of $10,742,509.75. Additionally, I recommend expense vouchers 1083 and 1084 and new expense vouchers 1093 through 1098 for a total of $12,244,744.21 for a grand total of ratifications and new vouchers of $22,987,253.96.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Thank you very much. We'll move on to superintendent's reports. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. I have a few items of note to share. We always begin with the enrollment report, which, as you can see, we're down, I believe it's about 13. There it is, 13 students. If you look at the trend graph, it supports kind of what we talked about on the budget discussion, which is that the blue line's above the orange, but this year's been kind of in line with the world and national economic trends, movements, variables. It's been kind of a slowing. It's still growth, but it's slower growth, which is what Lizette anticipated and predicted, and we kind of get that. We are anticipating that growth will continue and to move in a positive direction, and the overall trajectory of the district continues to be favorable based on multiple indicators, including town permits, new construction going on in the area, commercial and residential. So we continue to be, as the stock people say, very bullish on the future of Sahuarita, and we're very excited about that. This morning, unfortunately, I didn't get to attend, but I understand some of my colleagues attended. Tucson Values teachers recognized Alexa Rodriguez, who's I believe a middle school math teacher at Wrightson Ridge, and she received the Tucson Values Teacher Excellence Award. And this is a very special award that is presented by Tucson Values Teacher. We've had a few of our people gotten that before, and it's a big deal. And it celebrates what we know, which is the importance and the specialness of a great teacher who comes to work every day to make a difference in the life of our students. I wanted to say thanks to Amber Woods behind the screens and the cameras over here, making sure that we're always rolling on the live stream. But she was the quarterback of the State of the District event, which took place last week. I am proud to say that every one of our board members was in attendance. And I think it speaks to your cohesiveness and your commitment. It was a great showcase. Last, I think it was Sunday, I think I'm the last known subscriber of the paper version of the Star, but I was drinking my coffee and I saw this. And I saw that gentleman looks familiar. The paper presented here's the other part. This is the Tucson's Fabulous 50 Nurses, which is a huge honor. They've been doing it for a long time, and it's about representing the highest ideals of the nursing profession and being a role model. And you read the bios of the people that they pick, and they're amazing. So, of course, I saw Dr. Sparks, who is a psychiatric nurse practitioner and a faculty member, a professor at the University of Arizona. And I thought, of course they picked Dr. Sparks, because he is in his, as we call it, his day job, what he is here, committed to excellence, service-oriented, and genuinely caring about people. So, John, congratulations. You make Sahuarita shine once again. And speaking of shining, in about 8 minutes, the Mighty Mustangs will take the field up the road in Phoenix. They are one of 4 baseball teams in Division 4 that are still playing ball in the state of Arizona. And I was at SHS today, and like I told their faculty, they're very skilled young athletes, but what impresses me more when I interact with them is they are nice young men, they are polite, they are civil, they are strong character, they're nice gentlemen, which is what we do here, is we shape people and help them grow. So good luck, go Mustangs. And I think with that, My report is concluded. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Valenzuela. We'll go ahead and move on to governing board reports. Slow.
I just had a really good time at the State of the District. It was nice to be there and be amongst our community and see what our kids are doing. And it was nice to be back in person at that event. And just everything's happening by fire hose. And the go around and in the last 2 weeks of school, and just an encouragement to all our teachers and faculty and students to keep it up. And we look forward to seeing everybody at graduation.
Thank you very much. Ms. Reese.
Yesterday afternoon into the evening hours, the district celebrated those individuals who were retiring from the district, and I just would publicly like to say again, thank you for your service and congratulations on the next chapter that you're getting to take. That's it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bruno.
I'd just like to say I had the opportunity to walk around Sopri Elementary School actually this morning, and to Mr. Downs, the paint and the upkeep and the changes to the building are quite impressive, and I am glad to see we're able to provide some additional upkeep and some changes to that building to keep it as modern as possible.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rodriguez.
Yeah, it seems like we're winding down here with the school year, but the events have ramped up. Monday, I got a chance to go see some students be recognized at the academic awards evening there from Walden Grove. Like Ms. Reese stated, I was at the retirement yesterday, and I really enjoyed hearing the staff and the teachers talk about how they enjoyed working here at Sahuarita. Well, they all had different stories, but the one thing they had in common was they all felt appreciated here. That just speaks to the testament of when we say that, you know, Sahuarita is special. Thank you.
Thank you. All have talked about kind of all the things I was able to attend. I think it's one of those times of year where we think, oh, we're almost done, but then there is literally something every single night of the week going on. And so I just appreciate everybody's hard work as the year kind of ramps up as it winds down all at one time. It's like the crescendo before the end, and appreciate everybody's hard work and dedication to the students here in the district. And you know, hopefully that means a little bit of a break for many people after the graduations are done and the last day of finals and school is let out for the summer. So appreciate everybody's hard work. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is recognition of community staff and students, and we'll move over to item number C, Dr. Valenzuela.
SHS new band uniform presentation. You know what? I never take for granted the specialness of this community, and it was mentioned multiple times. And one of the ways that the community exemplifies that is its support for our maintenance and operations and district additional assistance overrides. We provide many special programs and opportunities for students to shine athletically in the fine arts and leadership. One is we are a fine arts district, I believe, and I say that proudly. We invest in music education from K through 12. We start instrumental music, band, orchestra, choir from the elementary levels all the way up. But you know, things have a cost. And this community has always been willing to invest to make these elements a critical part of the educational experience. And one example of this is these new band uniforms, which we collaborate on how we're able to afford them because they're not cheap. But through this local support and through the schools working together to even rotate how they order them. What I mean is Walden got theirs last year, so they pooled all the money from the high school money so that they could do, and now this year Sahuarita has brand new ones, and we're very fortunate this evening to have Mr. Ben Garland, the director of bands, Sahuarita High School, who's going to come and speak and I believe unveil the new uniforms. Mr. Garland.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate you letting me be here tonight. I'm super excited to kind of make the official debut of these things for you guys. Before I have the kids come out, because they've been waiting very patiently in the pod across the lobby over here, I want to take a second and briefly talk about the old uniforms. So for any community members or people that don't know, the typical lifespan on one of these things is about 10 years if you play it right. And usually you would start the process of preparing to order new ones or purchase new ones at about 8 years or so, because it takes a while to get the funds prepared, and then the design process is lengthy to go through the bids, the design, receiving samples and approving those, going into production. It's about a year timeline from start to finish just on that portion of everything. Our old uniforms lasted about 11 years, if I remember correctly. So we got a good squeeze out of them, but it was definitely time for this to happen, as they were quite literally falling apart, a lot of them, and very discolored and all those sort of things. So we're really excited about it. What I'm most excited about with these uniforms is that there's a lot of versatility and customization that we can do. So if they're ready, I'm going to have them come out, and then I'll talk about that just briefly before I do a couple of thank yous. So, yep.
Sharp. That's sharp.
So we've got here Jack and Kieran and Kevin. So they got the 3 different looks that we kind of have. The black one in the center there is our drum major uniform. And so that's kind of the special one that happens there. On either side, we have our regular band uniforms, but as you can see, there's some different options that we have there. We can change out the shirt underneath to get some different looks. The gold pieces on the front are detachable. The mirrors that are on the hats are also detachable, so in the future we can always order some like additional supplemental parts if we want to have a special S to fit a certain theme or a certain show or a certain font or something. If we wanted to change out the shirt underneath, we could replace it for something. We could do pink for breast cancer awareness. We could do a special custom shirt underneath to go for a particular type of show or whatever. So there's a lot of versatility to these things, which is really, really wonderful and not something that we have with the old ones. The last thing I just want to kind of say briefly, again, is of course a thank you for everyone for the support and for our taxpayers and our community. This again is not possible without supportive bond initiatives. This is not possible without those sorts of things. A typical uniform, at a bare minimum, costs about $500 a piece, and you're ordering them in the quantity of 100 or more. And again, that's a baseline price. So to be able to do this really requires that support. And so what you're seeing here truly is support for our students and your bond dollars at work. And we're so thankful for that. I also want to say thank you to the SHS Music Boosters, because they contributed in a very substantial way towards the purchase of these. And of course, anyone that made tax credit donations over the past several years and all those sorts of things. Those tax credit dollars are so important to the funding of our schools and our programs to make sure that these kids have what they need. And again, just thank you from me. Thank you for support of our program, and thank you for your support of our students. And we just appreciate you so much. It's wonderful that we are able to have this, and I can put them in something that they can be proud of for the fall, and not something that's going to continue to fall apart at the seams, quite literally. So thank you so much.
Before we sit down, does anybody have any comments or questions?
As a parent who has hemmed, Febrezed, named for 6 solid years, like those are amazing. Are they comfortable? You can move in them. I mean, the other ones were like heavy. I mean, right? It's like turn around, spin. What?
There's snaps up the side.
Let me tell you, that was like crazy. I can't tell you. I think my fingers are still sore. They look great. I mean, and there you can move. I mean, the other ones were heavy. You know what I mean with that. And in our climate and our condition, I mean, like that's great. It's really, really nice to see. I'm glad the community we were able to get them. Good job. They're like wonderful. I'm looking forward to watching your show.
I don't think you're going to get away from the Febreze. I'm just going to throw that out there. You may not hem, but you'll still
I think
need
my
Febreze.
senses are still numb to it. Yeah.
So I just want to make sure. So there's 2 shirt colors, black and blue, at least right now. So the band has two different kinds, and then with gloves and without gloves, and what do they call those stuffs? Very cool.
Ben, this looks a lot more sleek, lightweight than
Yeah.
the ones that I remember 18 years ago,
Breathable.
or certainly when I was in high
It's
school.
just nuts.
But is that kind of the general trend in?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and you guys are on your knees. I mean, it's on the ground. I mean, and so that's great that they look very comfortable to do that.
I think managing a comprehensive high school marching band like this is a tremendous task on
Oh,
so
yeah.
many levels. So like when I just wonder as a novice, like when you're talking about no sewing, no hemming and stuff like that. So like, how are you able from year to year to manage the different styles, body types, shapes, sizes of people? How are you able to tailor everything? Uh-huh. Yeah.
And Manny, typically it's like the seniors get fitted first, then juniors, then sophomores, then freshmen. And so then you just kind of make it work. Sometimes pit.
Well, I'm
gets
with you,
lost,
Sherry.
yeah.
Very, very proud of our community to make this kind of an investment in this wonderful program that we know is just going to continue to shine and rise. And I'm with you. I can't wait to see next fall show. Thanks for the idea.
Thank you for coming. We really do appreciate it. Ms. Lowell, do we have any call to the public this evening? Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to item number 7. I think a favorite event also, but we'll go ahead and move on to the CEF mini grant presentation.
CEF, and again, for the public that might be new, CEF is code for the Sahuarita Educational Enrichment Foundation. It's a 501c3 nonprofit that has one mission: to support the mission of the Sahuarita School District. As you'll hear, they do it in many ways, but I would just be remiss if I didn't thank Fran and everybody, Jan, the whole CEF crew. They're continuing to grow and make a difference. I'm particularly proud this year. CEF was instrumental in the initiation of this very innovative, very new promise grant, the Pima First Sahuarita Wins grant that's providing tuition to dozens of our kids, 2 years tuition, Pima Community College. So we're grateful to CEF as you continue to make a huge impact in the mission of the district. And with that, I see the smiling face of my colleague. I don't know if any of the rest of you know this, my colleague, Dr. Jan Spooner. Please.
Thank you, Dr. Valenzuela and Dr. Sparks, President of the board. Thank you, board members, Mr. Downs and Mr. Bonner. It is my pleasure to have our annual presentation of our CEF mini grant awardees. These are some of the awardees, and I appreciate them coming out so much. As we know, the end of the year is a really tiring time for teachers, and so I thank you all for coming out in your busy lives to do the presentation. And I also would like to thank Sarah Mora, who organizes the presentation. She unfortunately couldn't be here today, but she puts a lot of work into this. And I would also like to thank Fran Yeager, who takes care of our money and helps make this possible. We could not do it without her. And Janet Turner, who is the chair of the CEF mini grant program. So with that, we will go ahead and get started. Just to let you know, so this year we awarded $5,648 in grants, and the total since 2015 is $57,961 that we have granted to teachers. Fran and I had a conversation earlier today. We're trying to figure out how much the total has been because we've been doing this since 2012. So we are now in our 11th year of doing the teacher mini grant programs. And so Fran and I are going to try to figure it out and hopefully next year have that total amount. But also it's worthy of noting that this year marks CEIF's 20th year of being a foundation for the district. And so we wanted to mention that as well. So many people involved in that who aren't here right now, but we stand on the shoulders of many fine people who created this organization. So just to acknowledge our community contributions, the White Elephant is a major supporter. We write grants to the White Elephant to support the program. We work with the Optimist Club as well to fundraise. And then we also apply for grants through the Community Foundation of Greater Green Valley. So we have a lot of community support for our mini grants project. Just to let you know that we've got a great partnership going with the Optimist Club. And we are now, I believe, in our 4th year of planning an annual golf tournament, which is a whole lot of fun. If you like to golf, even if you don't like to golf, it's a lot of fun. So save the date, October 28th, 2023 at Haven Golf Course. More information will be coming about that. Also, if you are interested in supporting the foundation, you can sign up for Amazon Smiles, Fries. You can just give us money. Everything is 100% tax deductible. And also, just to let you know, we also support the National Board Certification program for teachers here in our school district. We provide them with funds that they need to take those extra classes that help them to be successful in the program. So we've supported many teachers now in our district to receive that prestigious honor. It's a great deal of work, and our philosophy is that it aligns with our mission because we are all about supporting education and enriching activities for students and also for teachers. And having a National Board Certified teacher on your staff raises that level of rigor and that evidence-based practices that we all know work for kids. And so we are very keen to support that endeavor for those teachers who choose to take that on. And we also are supporting the Community Share program, which you will be hearing more about in the future, I'm sure, if you haven't already. All right, so with that, we are going to go ahead and get started with our classroom projects. I would like to thank Shannon Holtz, Rusty Carl Ogren, Laura Hatfield, Jen Sturzenegger, and Heather Pearson for coming out tonight to show us their projects. Again, these are 5 teachers out of many that we provided grants to, and we thank them for coming out. So we'll go ahead and get started with Shannon.
Didn't know we were coming up here, but that's fine. So, my name is Shannon Holtz. I teach 5th grade ELA at Wrights and Ridge. I have the whole 5th grade, so that's why my number is so high. I'm about 93. I think I might even be closer to 95 now. So for our project at the end of the year, all year long, we read books. So in addition to the curriculum, we also do a novel study every quarter. And then every single week, I do a picture book with my students. We talk about theme. It's just an opportunity to get more literature in their hands, and it also gives us a common vocabulary. So when we're talking about themes, we've all read some of the same books, so we can share those experiences. So now at the very end of the year, I gave the students the opportunity to redesign, reinterpret, or just copy this cover of their favorite book that they have read this year. There were so many different ones that they picked that were meaningful to them. They've had a lot of fun with this project. Luckily, there's enough extra paint that we can for sure do this again at least another year. It gives us an opportunity at Wrights, and we don't have art, so it lets us incorporate art into the curriculum. They've had so many wonderful discussions on which cover should I make, which one was most important to me. You know, the real cover didn't have this on it, but I think this was important. So this has been a great project, and I really appreciate your support in it. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Rusty Carl Ogren. I teach 5th through 8th grade band and choir at Wrights and Ridge. It's kind of hard to necessarily show in pictures what we do with a flute, but I brought it here for you as well. But this is one of the instruments that we're able to get to support students who have a financial need and can't afford to rent an instrument on their own. And as a new school with not a lot of funding, because the entire world right now, being able to provide instruments for kids so that they still get the opportunity to participate in music is really, really wonderful. Next year, I have a couple classes that are going to be nearing the 50 number. And I'm excited that that's possible because of things like this. So thank you very much for supporting.
Good evening. I'm Laura Hatfield. I teach special education math at Sahuarita Middle School, and I had the opportunity to take our students to track. If you haven't heard of track, it's Therapeutic Ranch for Kids and Animals. And when we arrived, our guide, the rancher, Mr. Tilley, really hooked our students with like the science of the animals that were there. And he talked about predators and most of the ranch animals are prey. And I was like, okay, all right, they're in, they're listening, and they're participating. And then, like a true pro, he pivoted to being able to like talk about our body language, how we are as people, because the animals respond to how we are. How we are with the animals is how the animals were going to act. And I was like, wow, that was the social-emotional learning piece of this grant that I put in for. And I was like, and they did brilliantly. They were calm, they were happy. Some students that I didn't anticipate would do well with the animals. They were a little intimidated, actually went in and were sitting with the goats. We have to figure out next year how to bring goats back. Our staff was trying to figure out, could we hire them with the landscaping and have them on campus? Could that work? Could we hire them? Because the kids just loved working with the goats. The goats were brilliant. Some of them are being trained to do goat yoga, and so they'd crawl on their backs. And so, yeah, I think next year we might be asking the board, like, how do we bring goats to our campuses? It'll be win-win for everybody. Landscaping, weeds are gone, and goats. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Jen Sturzenegger, and I'm the 3rd through 8th grade L teacher for Wrights and Ridge School. So I used my grant to get some supplemental Haggerty materials, which we're using Haggerty for like phonemic awareness for the students. All of our younger kids are using the Haggerty Phonemic Awareness Program, but unfortunately we don't have the supplemental materials such as the readers and the flashcards and the posters and the books available as well. So I was able to purchase some of those supplemental materials, which really are helping my L kids learn how to read and be excited about reading. So there's pictures of a couple of the kids doing the activities, and they just love it. They love it's good to have repeated phonics instruction and to be able to work with their peers and read the book together and be like, oh my gosh, I noticed the pattern, because they're very patterned. Like you do the phonics skill, you do the oral skill, and then they read the book and it's all connected. And it's like, wow, they're able to make connections. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and I really appreciate it.
A cheap library book that had been requested by students. Library at Waldorf.
Hi, my name is Heather Pearson, and I'm a teacher at Sahuarita Middle School. And we used the CEF grant to purchase graphic novels that were of high interest to students. So especially this time of year, as we get towards the end, students were able to do literature circles. They were able to make choices about what they were reading. They got other students excited about what they were reading. And we're able to talk about those things, analyze for setting, plot, characters, themes, symbol, And then we used all that information to create a flip book that incorporated all those ideas. So we had art in there too. And the students had a lot of fun with it. So thank you very much for purchasing those books.
Thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you again next year.
All I can say about that is all of those stories validated in my mind the meaning of the words that represent the title of the organization, educational enrichment. Thank you.
Can I make a comment? So for those of you who may not have been around when the Enrichment Foundation started, the board at that time voted to find a way to start the Enrichment Foundation, and they did so because of a man named Stephen Wolfslager. His father was a Coca-Cola mogul and had passed away and wanted to find a way to fund youth in the community. And he provided $150,000 to the Sahuarita Enrichment Foundation to start the junior ROTC program here. So the service that is provided through the Enrichment Foundation is a great resource to the district, and I thank all of you personally for everything you've done. I also want to say I raise goats. I have 50 at your disposal as of today. They can do yoga. They're all 4-H qualified, so.
Very, very cool. Do you have the ones that faint? You do. Very cool. Well, and I'd like, thank you for your comment. And I really want to add too that I think SEAF often becomes a unifying force across the valley. I think in many, many ways, whether many of the activities and fundraisers, you not only raise money for the district and educational enrichment, but also bind together the community as a whole, bring people together to music and books and history. And I think it's just, it does more than I think maybe some people think. It raises money for the school, but it also, I think, connects on a very broad level people within the valley, and I really appreciate that. That's something I've watched over the years and been always, it just makes me smile when you see, kind of broad groups of diverse people coming together for the betterment of education in the area. So anyway, thank you. Thank you very much.
We can do a plug.
Sorry.
I think that Friends of Sahuarita has a book out on Amazon called Sahuarita, Arizona Treasured Nuggets from the Past that everybody can go on Amazon, and it's purchased for $19.99. And a portion of that does go to the Educational Enrichment Foundation. Correct, friend? Is that right? So that is out on Amazon now.
And it's a great book too.
Great book. I bought two.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to item 8, new business, the revised budget, expenditure budget. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, President Sparks, members of the board and the public.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to public online auction items. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. President Sparks, members of the board. You have in your packet a list of items that have been deemed exhausted of their useful life. It's a pretty short list this time. You got some old monitors, some old cell phones, and even something called a Wells Fargo check banking system. I have no idea exactly what that is, but it's going to be on the auction block if you'll approve it. And at this point, I do recommend your authorization of the items listed for public online auction.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, the ASBA legislative advocacy. And I'll go ahead and lead this if you'd like.
Yes, this is an ASBA.
Yep. So annually, we get the opportunity as a board to submit items that we find in need as items we'd like to see focused on by the Arizona School Board Association. And in the documents is last year's items, the top five priorities that we sent. And then also in there is the kind of final political agenda from the end of last year, kind of that the ASBA took all that information, had a relatively ruckus meeting to come to an agreement across this great state, very diverse backgrounds and perspectives. And they came up with this unified document, an agenda that they wanted the association to focus on. And I think many of the things in there are the things we asked for that they're focusing on. Things like, equitable and adequately funded district schools to at least the national median per pupil, preserving and strengthening local control, kind of some of those items. So this is an opportunity for us to either submit the same ones we submitted last year, to alter them, to add to them, and then that can be forwarded. Usually Ms. Palacio sends it for us up to ASBA as the items as a district we feel are important. So I'll open that up to anybody. If you see those, if anybody has any comments or wants to make changes or feels like something's not necessary or something has come up that is more pressing or concerning. So I'll open that floor to anybody who has any comments.
The one thing that I had on my list is a permanent resolution to the AEL situation in addition to removal of the state revenue cap. And I know the two are tied together. I feel like the top 5 priorities that we've had listed for the last couple of years are still really pertinent to today's political climate in terms of for legislative advocacy and those kinds of things. But this AEL thing just keeps putting us up against a brick wall year after year after year. And I feel like that maybe we need to do some rearranging on our top 5 priorities to get that one in there for this year.
So I'm just looking at kind of the number one priority on the prior year political agenda, that adequately and equitably fund district schools to at least the national median per pupil funding. I don't believe it says it in there directly, but it does say ensure the formula addresses unique financial needs of schools. Talks about providing dedicated capital funding, providing stable dedicated revenue sources. Would it be okay under the adequate, as we had it in last year, equitable, sustainable, and dedicated funding sources of education? Under the rationale, can we say focus on removing that cap and providing a stable revenue source? Because I think it falls under that.
Yeah.
If we all agree. It doesn't say it specifically, and I think it'd be okay to ask them to add that specifically to the agenda. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Any other changes? Is that okay that we kind of lumped it in there?
No, I absolutely agree. I think that's probably the most succinct way to be able to do that and maintain these other priorities as well.
Okay. And so kind of leaving those the same as they were before: funding for new schools, restore capital building, oppose vouchers and empowerment, scholarships, and such market-driven reforms, reframe state accountability system labels. So the ones we had on there before. And of course, always local control and funding of all day kindergarten. We always ask for that too.
Yeah.
And I think they're in there. And I think I like the priorities as set out, and I'm glad we added that. And I think that will be a common theme. I don't know if I'm the chair of the political action committee again, or the political committee again, but I think I am again this year. So I just talking to people around the state, I've heard that I think that's going to be a major topic. I think everybody's ready to not have to have a finance department that produces 2 budgets every year and, know where we're going. Right. So we'll add that one and then leave the rest the same. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. You take care of that? Thank you. Appreciate it. And then the next item on the agenda is 9B, and I'll also, sorry. We have to make it authorized for her to send it. So do I have a motion to authorize Ms. Palacios to forward the information as presented here this evening?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Thank you very much, and thank you for reminding me, because I forget. I told you I needed a little extra help tonight, not a lot of sleep. So the next item on the agenda is to select an ASBA delegate for the delegate assembly, and that is an individual that represents our district in the voting on items of importance during the delegate assembly.
Do we do?
We need a
one
delegate and a backup.
I'd like to nominate Denise Reese as the delegate.
Okay. So we have a nomination.
And I got a lot of sleep. That's right. Do we want to, do we vote on that and then go to the backup?
So we have a nomination. Technically, we don't need a second. We just need to all agree on that.
Anybody have an issue with that?
And I think you've done it before.
Yes,
and
right. So it's good to have it, right?
Has been well spoken for the district.
Correct.
And then we do need a backup. Does anybody have any particular motion, or I would make one?
You can make one.
I think that we ought to nominate Mr. Rodriguez to be the second, the backup.
I'm good with that. That's good. So, you okay with that, Raul?
You okay with that? You haven't been to a delegate? Yeah, have you been to a delegate assembly? Not yet.
No, it'll be good, and that'll be good that he goes with Denise. That'll be good.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Okay.
And I think before we vote, I think we don't have to vote, but everybody can say we agree. But it's kind of an important process. These meetings used to take like 13 hours. Because imagine trying to get everybody from Maricopa and Pima and Mojave and, Graham and Greenlee County and Cochise, the whole state in one room. Now the political action committee takes a person or two from all of those counties and puts them in a room and kind of gets a base document, and then everybody talks about that document, which has streamlined the process. So it only lasts like 4 hours now, maybe 5. A lot, but it can be pretty lively. Everybody, people, but I have to admit, probably the most respectful, political, engaged conversation I have seen in a long time. Like, people have very, very different opinions.
Yeah.
And they say them, but I'm always impressed by the end of it that people are still shaking hands and patting each other on the back when they leave.
Yeah.
They can have very different opinions, but they ultimately come together and vote on an item and make that effort. And I appreciate that. So I think it's a great process.
Yeah.
So,
I think you'll really enjoy it.
yeah. Are you both okay with that?
You guys good with it?
Anybody opposed in any way? Okay. So can I have a motion to authorize Ms. Palacios to submit that information as Denise Reese as the delegate and the backup delegate, Mr. Rodriguez?
So moved.
So, second.
Motion and a second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Thank you very much. And then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. President Sparks, members of the board, you have in your packet a fairly lengthy list of routine consent matters that may be considered in one comprehensive motion. Again,
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion? A recommendation to approve it with that one typo correction.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just want to do a shout out to the Santa Cruz Valley Carnuts. $20,000 donation to our Sahuarita High School auto class. That's amazing. The Valley Verde Rotary Club, $3,500 for the instrumental music, and again to the Walden Grove instrumental music program, as well as everybody else. We just couldn't do it without them, and that's an amazing donation that month after month we get from our community.
Thank you very much. It's always full. I'm always amazed at the amount of money that people give to support the district. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Thank you very much. Any possible future agenda consideration item requests? Okay, seeing none. We'll go ahead and establish the next board meeting here on May 31st, which will be post-graduation at 6 o'clock here in this pod. And may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here this evening.
Perfect.